Hello and welcome to another Sacred Wisdom podcast with some of our regular guests, Grandmother Mulara, Sue Cimino and Felix Hyde. Welcome all of you, and I'll hand over to Chris now to introduce some of the topics, the exciting topics we're going to be discussing today.
Well, thank you, Becky. Hello and welcome back, Grandmother Mulara, Sue, and Felix. So today we have some different and exciting topics to cover. And we are going to have a bit of an Australian focus on our podcast today. And we're going to turn it over to Grandmother Mulara to talk about a recent court case and some very exciting, trailblazing the things that Grandmother Mulara is working on. So I will hand over to you. Thank you.
Nanga, thank you. Good to see everybody again. This wasn't the topic we were originally going to talk about, but it's the hot topic. So it's so hot that we just have to talk about it. So first up, many of you will know that I did a broadcast a couple of weeks ago on The Voice. So in Australia, there is a push from the government to include our original people onto the Constitution, except that it isn't the real Constitution. And this is what I spoke about. It is, in fact, the charter to a corporation. In fact, the US corporation is what our government is. It was listed on the US Securities Exchange in 1973. And our original constitution, founding constitution, was put aside and it was mirrored by a corporation. So they took off the words Commonwealth. They took out, they changed the coat of arms. They created a fictitious Queen of Australia. And many other things, but they also brought in parliamentary sovereignty. And that's what I wanted to talk to people about, to say, because no one else was talking about it, I thought, I need to bring this to the fore because I've got law and law. So, okay, this is what it really means. It really means that by putting us, contracting with us, forcing us to contract via putting us on the charter to the corporation, it means that the corporation then has sovereignty over us, is able to rule over the original sovereigns. And we just can't have that. It's like a no, no, no. And so it's been phenomenal response in just 2 weeks. There's been like at least 56,000 on that original one take 7-minute clip, and 50,000 plus on the follow-up interview just a week ago with Maria Z. They are both available on my website now, if anybody wants to have a look at them. And it's so much traction that I've been inundated with requests for interviews. That you're the first people afterwards since Maria Z. Requests for interviews, podcasts, radios, blah, blah, blah. Speaker engagements. There's been a proposal that I lead the revolution. Truly, it's been an amazing response in 2 weeks. I had no idea it was going to be like this. I just knew I had to get a message out there. I thought Spirit was really pressing. You've got to get this message out there. And because I can speak both laws, I did. And it's been interesting. I haven't heard anyone from government, but the government did respond to my first broadcast by getting the Australian Electoral Commission to put together these points is disinformation, which is the points that were in my broadcast. And I find that hilarious. So they're obviously worried because it's true. I'll tell you what else is happening. I'm about to speak to the truckies of Australia. Now, we were all familiar with the truck movements, some years back, the trucking across Canada. We had a similar thing across Australia and they blocked all their communications. Well, the truckies have got me coming in on Saturday in just a few days' time to talk to them about this, because they travel all over the land, all over the continent, and by me, our creator spirit who's come in and given me insight into a message for them, because they drive through our trading routes, our song lines, our dreaming tracks all over the country. They are very well connected. So I'm going to give them a mission. And so that I won't I'll just foreshadowing it. I'm not telling you what it is, because otherwise it'll spoil the surprise if any of you watching are truckies in Australia. I want to actually surprise them and make it feel really important, because it is the mission that I give them to transport the no vote and the reason why. The reality is that it's not just about we don't want to be contracting on that corporate governance. It's actually to stop. We are the last front to stop the New World takeover of all of the properties. They want our title to this country, and they want yours. And they already in Australia have digitized land titles, so you don't actually have a physical being able to hold it, the physical title. It's all been put into digital format, which means in actual fact they don't exist. And so this is a very big deal. If this was to go ahead, then the land grab to come in and sell off the entire country is right on the doorstep. And in actual fact, we're doing this for the world, because while we hold out, they can't do it as a whole global world takeover, which is what they want. We're holding out. There's a much more going on, but for now, that's probably enough to be spoken about.
Thank you very much, Grandmother Mulara. And what's really coming to mind for me right now is, your life, your story, because you spent the last 10 years or so building up to the battles that you've had to be fighting. And almost as soon as you're just about to come into a resolution in that, you're being shown a whole new contract of what you now need to do. And it seems to be even bigger. So well done.
Fascinating. Thank you. Yeah. And in fact, the court cases I've had were against the corporate blacks. And the corporate blacks are the ones who are running. They think that they're doing, that they're, that they own country, and that they owned that block, and that they can speak for the rest of the mob in that group tribe, and they can't. And they have been corporatized as well. And the land councils are just a mouthpiece for the colonial government, which is a corporate government. So they're about to take over the entire lot. Those who devised this plan, this devious plan, are promoting it. Wouldn't it be a good thing to have our original people on the Constitution hand on heart? And we're like, no, it would not. But also, it's the fight that I've had to go through for 10 years of serious defamation to put me aside, because I expose as a whistleblower the corruption in Indigenous Australia, and particularly in my mob, which is one of the worst of the worst. And therefore, my life was challenged, let alone I had to live in a different state, because I'd be dead if I'd stayed where I was in my original state. But that's all, it's sort of behind me now and enabled me to be able to speak. I haven't really been able to speak in the open until this was finished. And so the Supreme Court action is ongoing, but the judgment has been given and found that the Aboriginal blacks, the corporate blacks, have been taken millions of dollars from our own people and used it for themselves. And so that's where it's gone. Is going to be very interesting to find out. So we've got an inspector appointed now by the court to follow that up, but also the defamation against me really, it was debilitating there for a while, and I've really had to step up and grow my my spiritual strength to turn that tide back. And now I feel like it's right behind me. They've tried in the last week or two to have another round because they lost in court. I can't actually say what the judgment is because the judgment's still to be given, but I know hands down that I have won. But I want her judgment to the judgment of the magistrate to come out and say exactly what they did. And that would be, I will put that on my website as well when that time comes. So yeah, it's been big, and it feels like there's a revolution happening here. There really is. There's a big movement. There's so much chatter, and people are saying that it created a conversations. People are now talking about the voice and about the reality of what is really means, because it means so much more. And the fact that people are talking about it is a good thing. Yeah, I've had enough. Next.
I just want to say, Grandmother Mulara, wow, and thank you for being a role model for everyone. I think you're right. This is about Australia, but it's about the world too. And you're showing how someone can stand up, have the courage, and stand in your truth and fight to take back sovereignty. And that's amazing and beautiful.
Thank you. There was no choice, really. It was my obligation as a senior law woman, as a holder of law and the holder of grandmother law, which is the overarching law under which we have men's business, women's law. But each of our countries across Australia, they actually have their own laws as well. But under universal law, which is sort of like grandmother law is a universal law, there's a lot of similarities, but just how it is enacted on the ground is different, because it's a different creation story in each of those places. Just want to acknowledge that. So there hasn't been one person who's been able to speak on behalf of the whole, you see. They've managed to divide us and subdivide us and subdivide us again. And so I've come out swinging and said, this cannot happen. But having a colonial law degree helps, because I know what I'm talking about, and no one can, and legally it's correct what I've said. And yeah, no one can come back at me in a that Westminster law perspective. Let me tell you, can I also say, I'm going to take another couple of minutes. The US Constitution, which was one part of the Constitution that was drawn, we drew our founding Constitution from the British and from the American Constitution. The American Constitution was based on the Iroquois Nation agreement, how they all came together because they were warring with each other. Something like 14 different groups. I'm not sure if it's 14, but it was a fairly large number who came together and made an agreement, and that became the Iroquois Constitution, for want of a better word. And that constitution was taken up by the American founding fathers who put the original constitution in there. There was one part they didn't transfer across. It needs to be in there now. And that one part is that should we ever want to go to war, we have to get permission from the grandmothers first. Interesting. And so, of course, the grandmothers would not let them go to war. We would help them to find a way to resolve their differences, because you're all our children, whatever colour you are, wherever you come from. And that's the perspective of under grandmother law. Thank you.
Thank you. Sue, you've been doing some work with Australian CC recently.
The timing is fascinating. It was just 2 nights ago that I did an ancestral clearing specifically for the Australian CC members. Joe asked me to do that, and I thought it would be similar to all the others, but it was very, very different and really important. I could feel for weeks, it's like I felt like I was going in to turn over the tables. It was very unusual. And it's Chris, you said this affects the whole world, and I think it does, because there have been so many attempts. Grandmother Mulara did a talk for CC over here, and one of the things I love that she said is we're all original people. Like there are indigenous people in Ireland, in Europe, they're everywhere, and that continual attempt to overtake our sovereignty, like you can see it in Atlantis. Edgar Cayce wrote about it. You can see it with the Roman Empire. You can see it with the colonization. Like there have been so many attempts to take our sovereignty. And so that's why I think what's going on in Australia is really important, because you can see how they make it look really, oh, this is a good thing. We're going to talk about it like it's really hard, like a humanitarian, it's a nice thing, we're going to give them, and yet underneath what's happening behind is deception. And we have fallen for that as humans so many times throughout our history, known and unknown. And so I love that we can see it right now happening again very, very clearly. But the thing, there was some reason I needed to do this particular thing with Australia first, and I didn't know why. I wouldn't have even thought to do it, but it came as the closer we got, and I was not allowed to let in a couple of people from Britain that are Australian, but I couldn't let in New Zealanders or US, because my guys wanted it to be purely Australian, not watered down. And it was lots of breaking the agreements, not just with the ancestors, but into the star families, to have our sovereignty taken, to be used to fight wars, and to be used for their purposes, not our own. Like it was so much. It went really, really deep and was beautiful. And there was a point in it where I said something that I've never said, and it had to do with a particular breathing grace into the heart and into the heart of Australia. And so it was fascinating because I watched part of the video that Felix did with Indigo Angel, and at 1 hour and 3 minutes, she says that it feels like Australia was the original heart of Pangea. I don't know what Pangea is, or that it was like the heart chakra. And a couple of people from the event also wrote me and said about Uluru being the heart chakra, but it was such an unusual thing for me to say, but I go with what I'm given, and then to have that validated by the video, it let me know that, and Grandmother Mulara has said it before, like the new dreaming starts in Australia. And for whatever reason, yes, I believe the original people on the planet are the Aboriginals. I think they're the heirloom seed. And so, yeah, that's what I have to add in there.
Sue, that's absolutely fantastic. Pangea was the original continent when Mother Earth was really young. 1/3 of her crust was thickened and was land, and 2/3 of the crust was much thinner and surrounded by sea. So there was just one landmass, and that was either Pangea or Pangaea. I can't remember. Pangea, I think. So I appreciate, so in terms of Earth having a soul, which I fully believe she does, soul, you know, souls have chakra points in connection with the earth. I have heard that over time, over the millennia, the sort of soul body within Mother Earth has shifted and changed, so that the chakra points have changed around the earth, and they've been sort of mapped out. And now it has been said that the chakra point for Mother Earth is Glastonbury, and somewhere very, very close to Glastonbury. It sort of shoots up in 2 points. And when I did my shamanic course, we were taken to a hillside and asked to remote view, I mean, not remote view, sort of far view, because we're physically looking at it, different points on the horizon. And I could have chosen at any point on the horizon, but I was drawn back to Glastonbury because I could physically see with my eyes a big pink colour around it, and surrounded by that a green halo. And when I say physically, I mean, it looks like I can physically see it, because I can physically see the colours. I'm not sort of just imagining it there, or I don't know, but I could see that. And for me, that felt like a confirmation. But I'm fully aware that the chakra points on Mother Earth do move around. So when you say that Uluru and part of, you know, Australia was the original heart chakra for Mother Earth when it was back in Pangea time, I can completely relate to that.
It's interesting because I think while humanity is going through this quantum leap, I think our chakra points are changing too. So it makes total sense to me that the Earth chakra points are changing. And I want to say one more thing, and then Felix maybe will share some more of his remote viewing with Indigo Angel. But one of the other things they talked about was things under the ground, programmed into the earth in a certain way. And through my sessions, I've always said, like, when I look really far back, there was technology used to begin our programming. It wasn't just what they were teaching us in words. It was technologically, the imprinting started. And so when they were talking about what's in the land, it made total sense to me, because it's technological. Like they had the ability to attempt to. I loved, one of the coordinators had posted it, the Edgar Cayce quote about Atlantis and how it was two factions that one wanted to be, you know, in tune with nature and be do beautiful things, and the other wanted to you know, take resources and for their own greed and their own purposes. And the focus was he called it subhuman. That doesn't feel quite right, but a human class that the good guys wanted to raise their vibration and help them become enlightened, and the bad guys wanted to keep them ignorant and use them as slaves. And it was such a beautiful quote, because it's like, it's showing us, I can see where it's just happened over and over and over again. The thing that's really exciting is we are on the verge or over the precipice of having overturned this, and that's beyond exciting. So Felix, you were remote viewing with Indigo Angel.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first point that we were really taken to, well, we were taken to a couple of others, but the ones I'm being drawn to talk about now was the Pine Gap facility. So this really works out as like an Area 52. And when we deep dived into it, it holds a frequency fence that runs across the ley line that runs through the vertical and one that runs across the horizontal. But this facility also accesses and draws power from Ayers Rock. And this is one charge point that really implements this. It's like a charge point power structure to implement this mental frequency that hosts it in a digressive formation. So you can't get the expansion as you go through thought. So this was one thing that really strongly came up. And this was tied through multiple points of anchor within the country. But the main one that I'm gonna just go into today is through Canberra. So in Canberra, there is the Black Mountain, and on top of Black Mountain, I believe it's called the Telstra Tower. Now, this Telstra Tower has been dormant, or so they say it's been dormant for quite some time now. But this tower has been emitting this frequency that has really been overpowering a lot of the mentality. Now, if you look at Canberra as a city on the map, it's actually drawn out as if like DC, like City of London, like the Vatican. It's all kind of sectioned off as if it's separate in its own entity. I'm not sure if that's true or not. I've not researched into it, whether it is its own entity, but it holds such a strong body, like the Masonic Templar thing, basically. Now, this Telstra Tower, not only does it draw up from Black Mountain, which hosts crystal caves beneath it, clear quartz crystal caves, taking up that natural power, but it's also tied into, I'm just going to look on my map here, the Federal Golf Club. Now, within this location, underneath the Federal Golf Club, there are 5 tiers of military bases that are situated through underneath this place. And within this land, not only is it used, and right next door to the Masonic Temple of Canberra, it's used as hunting grounds, secret society parties, all of these different things that kind of come in. But this location is the HQ, if you will, that runs the information streams, which also connects into the water thing I was speaking about in the remote view, connects into the planning, essentially, that goes through the pyramid structure of the Parliament building in Canberra. Now, if you look at that building, it's a pyramid. There's no other way about it. You look at it, it's holding up multiple tiers to create the pyramid form. So we can see right there and then we've got the Masonic templating again within that location. Now, I also found this really interesting as well. So much of these technologies and structures, they draw on the natural resources. Black Mountain, let me just look at my map. Mount Ainsley, that's adjacent to that, just to the east, is connected through an inorganic hexagonal grid in Canberra Central. Now, this to me, when I'm looking at it, is an access point to, it's an artificial access point drawing on organic resources to the halls of Amenti gateways. So this is a location point. And interestingly enough, on the far west coast, if we look to, oh, I've gone really far on my map. There is a big hexagonal organic, well, inorganic branding upon Exmouth. And this also is an access entry point into almost like a checking system for the galactic bodies, the celestial bodies, but not just like the benevolent ones, it's also the malevolent ones. So it's almost like a checking system for that, which was really, really interesting. And what I always find, if I get a lot of trolling comments afterwards, like I'm sure Grandmother Mulara will know, we're onto something, and then we get a lot of abuse coming in through that way. But it's just developing our knowing and trusting that we are correct within this information. So yeah, it was really, really interesting to see how that played out, and using these dormant towers to emit their frequencies to keep this dumbed down, with no disrespect, it is just technology, the dumbed down minefields to keep in a contracted, digressive state, where higher vibrational emotions are unable to be accessed for the latter as well. So yeah, it's you're doing such fantastic work, Grandmother Mulara. I'm so honored to share this time with you as well, and all of you. But yeah, I'm sending you all the shielding. I'm sending you all the support. Yeah.
So Felix, can I just you mentioned halls of Amenti, and you've mentioned that before, and you mentioned that there's an access point
Yeah.
there in Australia. What can you just briefly tell the audience what the halls of Amenti are, and like where access points are, like how many access points roughly there are around the Earth?
Okay, that's a really good question. So in my perspective, it's basically the halls of records. So it keeps the information of the planet's history, almost not quite like a morphogenetic field, but more so like a like a record, like an akashic field, if you will. So keeping information and like historical attributes within that. They're also saying that this was a connection point to the CDT holographic discs as well, which again, this holds holographic information of the 12-strand DNA template. So it's kind of like an abundant resource of etheric information, if you will, like a living library of light. Yeah. And the access points, there are many. I need to scope out quite a lot more. There are a few there's one through Egypt, I know that, and there's one in, I'm seeing Xi'an in China. But the rest of them, I need to spend some time to develop and really scope out that information.
Who would protect, and like what's the security around this information?
Okay. I think and feel it's an accessed location to those that hold a specific code infrastructure and sequence within their energetic fields. Which is also held within their own blueprint composition tied into a Blu-ray templating. So there are multiple templates that can access this point. The emerald templating, which is heavily held within Australia as well. At the start of the video, this was connected under Sydney. And there are many people that hold this kind of consciousness within them as well. But this Blu-ray templating, I'm seeing this as an access point, but not only that, is to retrieve information and then repattern and restructure people's blueprints and energetic bodies. So it's I'm not going to say it's for more evolved, because everybody's got that opportunity to get to this sort of stuff, but it's dependent on their scope, the vibration, and their intuitive capabilities, I feel. Yeah. There's more to it than that, but just to make it a bit concise. Yeah.
Fascinating, thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Fascinating. He's right.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
The bit that I know, you're right.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
And that Canberra was actually mapped out by a Freemason.
Really?
Burley Griffin was a Freemason, and he mapped Canberra, and he also mapped it against the stars above.
Mm.
You have the Southern Cross going down Anzac Avenue, it's called, from the War Memorial down to the old Parliament House to the new Parliament House. Is like the long axes of the Southern Cross, and then across you've got the two mountains. Black Mountain, Mount Ainslie. Nicely done.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that validation. That's so great. I'm getting goosebumps all over me right now. So great.
Very good. Yeah, it's been shocking. The revelations are coming out. I mean, it's a man-made lake there, and that lake has got submarine access, so that submarines come and go there, as well as spacecraft.
Yeah.
Amphibious.
So when you say submarines come and go, and I'm aware of this in the USA as well, but it's probably all around the world, there's like submarine activity in the Great Lakes and other lakes in the USA that comes from, there's underground tunnels and channels that come from the sea so they can go under. So I have heard that pretty much, and I'm wondering whether Loch Ness in Scotland perhaps might be one as well, although it's quite remote. There's not a lot immediately around it, but yeah, I've heard that submarines can travel from the sea through underground tunnels into lakes. So that makes entire, absolute sense. They'd want to do that.
Pine Gap is horrid. It is horrid.
Yeah.
Worst of the worst. And it's so bad. Well, actually, they've been cleaning it up. But we've even had, it's so deep with so many layers, we've even had those on the inner earth coming up and help clean it. Really, yeah. They were setting up Australia's headquarters, HQ, for sure. Yeah.
That's what I got as well with that. It's really, really, really vile there. And there is submarine access points. They showed me the imagery of Thunderbirds with Pine Gap, the little machine things that flies out of the rock, and the other crafts that can get in and out. As it is the central point, they just go underneath and access into it. It's real messy there. But it's getting restructured and reordered at the same time.
Yes, I think it's been cleared up. It's the feeling I've got, but there are all sorts of nefarious beings down there.
Yeah, definitely. I do feel there's a couple of access points and nodal points that are scattered around the continent, which are just running to collapse at the moment as well. But I feel towards 2024, I think this is going to be done, and I feel in connection to what you're doing as well, is that this frequency fence will lift and the liberation over the course of this year. It's almost like peeling back the tin of a tuna can for some reason. I'm not sure why they're showing me that. But as that does, the liberation comes out, the stink that comes with it, don't get me wrong, but the freedom that comes with that as well, it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be so, so, so expansive.
And it's going to be really, really hard for some people to really, when they're confronted with the truth, it's going to be very hard for them. What are you going to say, Sue?
Well, I was going to say that peeling back, like the top of a tuna can, is really the lifting of that which is dumbing down or affecting the mind of everyone there. I was going to ask, like, what does it take to, like, breaking agreements? I'm sure helps, but to stop that putting out of that blanket that's affecting their ability to see beyond. I know you talked later in your video about the prison mentality, and it's fascinating to me how, like, Britain arrested poor people and sent them to the other side of the earth and gave them no way back, made them do convict labor, so they were slaves for a period of time, and then when they were free they couldn't get back because it was a long voyage, a long awful voyage. But that ability to brainwash is a word that's coming to my mind, those people to believe that they're less than or not good enough, or use them to suppress others. So they use these people to suppress the Aboriginals because, like even the British people, like the military that was taking the convicts down to Australia, they were no more free, but they took the convicts, and then, and so everybody just dumped on the person below because they all thought that in some way it would help them be free or be better. And yet all of them were caught in the mental framework of being less than and not good enough and not deserving. And having only lack. So that's the kind of, I can't wait till that really lifts from people.
It's lifting. I'll tell you why. Because we've discovered that that's actually not the truth. That is not the true story.
Yes.
We've had spirits of the land have come through and said, we didn't take, we were taken.
Yes.
They were actually
I love that.
on the street or wherever, even at work. If they were fit, healthy men, they were grabbed and they became enslaved. They were sent to Australia to do the work of the ones who opened it up, the settlers. They became the settlers. But the key here is that they actually weren't thieves at all. Britain had a system of a penal, system for people who, petty theft. You don't go taking people, sending them halfway around the world for petty theft.
But
that
they
actually
did.
isn't what happened. No, they weren't the thieves. That was a ruse. They were victims of a convicts. So that's it. I mean, they were the victims of the con, and we've all been conned. You see, they actually weren't someone that pinched a handkerchief and got sent halfway around the world or pinched a loaf of bread. They were actually fit people who were grabbed and stolen themselves. And this has only just come out since, when was it? Around November last year, November 2022. I'm forgetting what you were in. And it came out in an area that we were doing some work, spiritual work, and it was really clear that it was in an area where there was some where convicts had been made to make the roads, were housed in a particular house in our vicinity where we were, and the spirits of that place just wouldn't let us sleep until we were listening, and they gave voice to what their true story was. And I did do a video of that on my Facebook, I think, but I just want to say that actually, yeah, they did some horrible things, but who actually did it? I think we now can call them the cabal. They were part of that whole, we'll take over Australia, we'll take over this land for our own purposes. And it's partly why they tried to get rid of the original people, because we didn't need anything. We weren't consumers. We were in the dreaming. We were very spiritual people. And so to change to, break that lock of our way of living and breathing and the spiritual powers that we held was to murder us or, take our children away and et cetera,
or let you not get educated, not let you get educated so that you would have the elders signing a treaty thinking they were getting Uluru back and it was being stolen from them for at least for another 99 years. Right.
Yeah. So we have talked about so many different topics here, a lot of history. I think some of the common themes that I've seen are we are finding the truth now, and that we have a voice and we have power and we are taking back our sovereignty. I don't know if anyone has any final thoughts there. I appreciate all of the wonderful conversations.
I reckon I'm going to have a lot more to add next time.
Yes. My parting thought is there's a reason they have wanted, and it's not the cabal, it's like through eons, so, but there's a reason they've wanted us, because we have been designed to be brilliant, to be creative, to be amazing beings that were an upgrade from where they've come from, and they're trying to control us so they can use us for and we are remembering the truth about ourselves so that we can start expressing that divine essence in the world in ways that bless everything and everyone. Win-win for everybody.
Thank you, Sue. That sounds like a great place to wrap up. So thank you so much. Thank you, Becky, Sue, Felix, and Grandma Mulara. And thank you, everyone who is watching our videos.
I also wanted to say a quick thanks, and yes, let's revisit this in a month or so, because this is definitely a vitally important topic. We're really beginning to see how important Australia is and the history of Australia in connection with the whole of the rest of Mother Earth. It's almost like a trailblazer. There's a lot. It's a very magical, beautiful, mystical place with a lot of important history. So I'd love to revisit this and talk about it again. Thank you all. See you again soon.
Thank you all.